Morena, to formally open our council meeting this morning, I will give our council prayer. Kia nui tātou. Ka tuku mātou ke kaha mai ngā māngai, ka whiri kia mō te kaunira o te iko o tika, ki te mahi me te ngā kaua. Ka whakamahi ngā pūkinga me te mātauranga i roto ngā wānanga me ngā hakataunga. Kia ka tūri ai te tahi hapuri mata tikana e tūkotahi ana kamatu, ka whiki anō i te ranga o tō tātou rohe. Ka katawanui ngā take o te rohe runga I te tika me te kono. Lord, we ask that through council discussions and decisions, the representatives we have elected may govern the whānau district with regulation, skill and wisdom to achieve a fairer and more united community that enhances the well-being of our district and solves the district's problems efficiently and effectively. Amen. I shall read that. I've got, I'll move apologies from Verbal Community Chair, the board, and Adele Gardner, and also Bradkin. But also note that we've got Te Hiku Community Board member Rachel Balke as a deputy today. I won't get a second. Any further apologies tonight?
Does there need to be a note for the time given the change today from 9 to 10? I think some of the elected members are a little bit confused about whether they're going to be online or turning up in person.
Yeah, so just seems to, can we just put a note, please? Okay, all those in favour? Those opposed or abstentions, that's carried. Also note that our chief executive is travelling, so is joining us online, and we've got Ian Fury as FNDC today. Correct? We'll jump into our deputations. We have two. The first is from Fiona King regarding item 6.1, the land drainage bylaw, and I've got written here supporting docs received. That's there. Everyone has some of those. Fiona, thank you very much for your patience. Now, you requested to give a verbal submission to this bylaw.
Yes.
We had some travel issues, and then we referred it to a deputation to our previous meeting, which then got deferred to our Te Hiku Community Board, and today is now your opportunity. I just wanted to make it clear why you have been given the right to speak today.
Thank you very much for that, and I really appreciate it, because we did ask to be heard with the submission process and with the direction that there was no ability to speak to your submission, so I appreciate that. And I thank you very much for making this opportunity for me to come and speak to you in regard to it, because it is so important for our community and in particular, the rural area of the Te Hiku Community Board. I've sent to you my submissions as a chairperson for the Karaia Drainage, the Waihara and the Kaikino Drainage Districts, and have support from the Motatini Committee as well. I've sent to you the district plan submission that we put in, the submissions to the panel that we were heard at Aipara, and the bylaw submissions that closed last month, and the proposed district plan decisions, section 42A reports, to give you some background of where we're at. So today it's important for us, and we've submitted to these submissions the entire time to have the maps and rules included in the proposed plan and explain why the bylaws were not working. That is all within the pack that I've given you. So rather than going through it all, I'll be happy to ask in regard to that. So I asked that the land drainage bylaw lie on the table until we have an outcome from the district plan, and I see within the report today that there is uncertainty to that time frame. So it's important that it stays on the table. The land drainage bylaw 2019 is in place now and can still be used if necessary. The land drainage bylaw is there is only for existing land drainage assets, and these needed to be attached to that bylaw, and hasn't happened yet. Those drains have been in place since the early 1900s. Any new drain additions would go through the resource consent process as per the bylaw. Bylaw is not for urban drainage, overland flow areas outside the drainage ratepayers' boundaries, because the drainage ratepayers, it has an area, and that is what's rated in the far north to pay a drainage rate. The FNDC needs to give that land drainage catchment and drain capacity consideration when developing in towns. Like we have Aipara that's moved out into the into the rural area, and it affects any drains being cleaned there because of the issue between building consents and planning and the non-recognisation of the land drainage drains there. And it's the same as in Kaitaia. Kaitaia has moved out of the urban area into that same rural environment, and the effects of the urban stormwater on the land drainage land is recently becoming a problem. Also in Awanui Township has land drainage, then piped through urban area and then back into land drainage before it reaches the river. Only this type of thing can be done through the district plan, because it's obvious up till now that the bylaw has not been considered, and when planning, a lot of people aren't aware that these drains exist as part of that council assets. And I believe that and I note that the bylaws have not been used by FNDC staff to enforce these rules for years. The only case where an abatement notice was enforced in the last few years was through the RMA and abatement notice process. The bylaw has no teeth and is very unfair to task the FNDC staff to try and implement rules within the bylaw that are not enforceable or very difficult to enforce. Adding the amendments in the recommendation today towards 9.1, that saying that they would improve certainty and clarity, will not do so. And you can see clauses 6, 7, 12 and 14 of the new bylaw, where you read without prior approval of council or without obtaining written prior approval of council. This does not happen. There is no process. There is no staff to implement this, and it hasn't been for the last 8 years. I have emails from FNDC staff stating they are unaware, unsure how to implement this. That's why I believe there's too many staff that have left council in the past 10 years, frustrated, unable to make headway, and unable to give any clear direction to ratepayers within the land drainage areas. There have been years and years of outstanding issues that cannot be enforced by the bylaw as it stands. There are many RFSs that are left unanswered or deleted from the system. It is unfair to load those breaches of the bylaw through the RFS system when you know FNDC has limited staff and are doing their best at what they do. The addition of the land drainage maps and rules within the district plan should improve this and be transparent for others to actually consider when building consents come in or resource consents. The Te Hiku land drainage ratepayers have had enough. Paying a targeted rate based on land area with no actual maintenance or drainage happening. No more, please. There are many breaches of the bylaw with a development happening in the far north over the last 5 years. Farm development, i.e. Tirara, Ngātakatau, cultural development, avocados, solar farms, etc. All within the land drainage area, all affecting the drainage schemes in some way or another. We don't want to stop development, in actual fact we want to encourage it, but within the bylaws there is no impact on the maintenance of schedules or the effects of downstream landowners. A lot of this is because they don't know. The building within 10 metres of a drain restricts the digger to access the drain from cleaning. The spraying of drains within areas where houses have been built restricts that maintenance as well. You all want to live in the north, to have development, encourage investors to prosper and create employment with good planning. If it was in the district plan, it would be able to be considered in the building consent and limb report when buying a property or a building as well, or building a house as well. That includes any building. The bylaw is not easy to understand or enforce. The district plan has that process that can go to the environmental court if challenged, saving many hours for FNDC staff time. The NRC plays a big role in the land drainage of Kaitaia and has a responsibility for the main drainage channels, stop banks and floodgates. They have their annual maintenance and spray programs also. And below that, I've attached the NRC's role and copied from their role in regard to the Kaitaia drainage area and how it entwines with the flood control areas, and the scheme also involves the maintenance and spraying to clear vegetation and manage floodwater through major outfalls, ultimately aiming to protect property and maintain land productivity. The NRC manages major flood flows channels like Taki's outfall, Tangoni Drain and the Pukipota outfits, which are all crucial for drainage, and they are integrated within the NRC's regional water and soil plan. And it just carries on to say how the Kaitaia drainage scheme is there, how drain maintenance is controlled, and how the Kaitaia Drainage Committee, a dedicated committee, provides an oversight and direction for the management of local drains. The purpose of the scheme, it is crucial for the maintaining of the productivity of rural land and the safety of our communities in the area, which are vulnerable to inundation from coastal and riverine flooding.
If you could wrap yourself up, please.
So the recommendation, which you have on page 21, I believe, this is a council decision, your decision that needs to be made. Clause 161A. I do not support this as it will not improve the certainty and clarity. B, I ask you to support the Land Drainage Committees and the Te Huku Community Board not to adopt the Land Drainage Bylaw today but leave to lay on the table. And C, I do not support the board reporting back to Te Huku with the implementation of the bylaw. And D, I ask that FND staff take its FNDC Council ask its staff to include maps and rules in the district plan. I'd also like to thank Tanya, Tui, Alistair for their great work in the past few months. We are making great progress to ensure we have the maintenance program of spraying and machine cleaning in place for this season, and we have been working very hard on the land drainage management plan at 2017 to be updated and hopefully have the planned workshops before the end of this year with the drainage committees and the Te Huku boards. So thank you very much, and I appreciate being given that time.
We don't have any time for questions, but we will pass to our Chief Executive.
Morena koutou. I'd just like to tautoko Mrs. King's deputation, and this comes from a development. I was at the Chief Executives Forum yesterday, and we were discussing shared services amongst councils and local government reforms. One of the notions or the suggestions that came up is that NRC should take on management of the land drainage, and the idea is that would be consistent with a lot of other regional councils in New Zealand that do stormwater and flood management and combine that with the land drainage efforts. And with that in mind, I think that's something I would like to pursue with NRC, and if we do that, then we need to make sure that they get a chance to give us a proposal for the land drainage that would be seamless and would fit in with their flood management activities. And therefore, we probably have to look at the bylaw again to make sure it's fit for purpose and doesn't have any gaps in it.
Thank you for that. All right, we'll go to our second imputation, and we've got Tracy Dalton speaking regarding item 7.1 to private user annual review. Opening applied Coastline Trail Trust 6 to private user goals. Tēnā koe whai, Tracy.
Ko te pai tawhiti whaia ki tata. Ko te pai tata whakamaua ki tino. Morena koutou, I'd like to acknowledge the mahi that you have done in delivering te pai o te uta. I want to also acknowledge Walton Davis here, my deputy chair from Kohiringa Tai, Twin Cycle Trail. I'd also like to just thank you all for the determination to create this framework. As the trust, it's one of your tamariki outside the council. We've found it as a pathway inside council, and I want to acknowledge Jude and her team of the Māori unit for that manaaki and welcoming. It has been a challenge for some of our staff to engage in te reo classes, but they'll come back. And if you just keep providing that relativity to people, they get more relaxed and comfortable about how much or how little reo they had. So you've set a foundation for partnership and progress in the whānau. Kia kaha. Kia kaha. We've selected 3 goals for our strategic performance plan for this current year we're already in. And we have focused on the actions that align to already what we do with our deed. Our deed ensures that we have representation, just as we all understand having Māori at the table ensures there is great movement and understanding rather than confrontation. I want to acknowledge that we chose the goals that ensure the trail reflects local values and supports the kaitiakitanga, deepens the cultural understanding and celebrates the local heritage. This is our unique point of difference for the manuhiri visitors that come to cycle the Pohiringa Tai Twin Coast Cycle Trail. We don't have the magnificent landscapes, we have magnificent people and people getting on with creating opportunities to engage with manuhiri. This is a great thing to have. People are the most important. We're also choosing the goals that drive economic opportunities and support Māori enterprise and build future leaders in our community. Mihi nui kia koutou katoa.
Any questions? Thank you very much for your deputation to us and for all of the mahi that the Trust does across our Pohiringa Tai Twin Coast Cycle Trail. And I'm very excited to see you be a role model to our other council-controlled organisations on being proactive in this space. All right, with that we are going to jump into our reports. We'll start with item 5.1, which is on page 6. The confirmation of previous minutes, that we confirm the minutes of the meeting held on the 25th of September.
It's not right.
We normally would, I believe, therefore, and with holding.
Yes.
I'd just like to note on page 9, the thanks and acknowledgement of Councillor Mate Rangatira Friday. I just wanted to acknowledge that today I can see he's online, but I thought that was quite a fitting description in the minute.
That's been very well in the executive by Councillor Musa.
One other comment. The two items
I'm
on
going to jump in the gun today. You can wait for me to ask you all the next item. Councillor McNally.
well, the two items today, the drainage bylaw and development contributions, they were moved from this meeting. They were originally in the original agenda for this, weren't they?
Materials.
In hindsight, yes, it should have been noted and it was verbally mentioned in the meeting. It was pulled from the full agenda. So it was available online for I think 4 days and then the agenda was updated to reflect that that item had been pulled from that with the intent of bringing it to today's extraordinary.
Should there be a note when that happens?
Yes, I believe so.
Can you add a note then?
We'll do that for the development contribution and the drainage item.
Anyone else have anything from the minutes? Stratford, right of reply.
Just on that last point, do we need to address why they were removed? The fact that the agenda was so huge and you had complaints from some councillors that they couldn't do anything by?
Right, I'll put the motion, those in favour say aye. Those opposed or abstentions, that's carried. We're now going to go to item 6.1, land drainage bylaw and analysis of submissions and adoption of amended bylaw. We've got GM, Roger Eckers here, and before we actually move on, I'm going to open the floor to any questions. Other than for Deputy Stratford.
So we're on item 6.1, the name change bylaw, and we have moved it. Yeah, Roger, if the review's left to lie on the table, does that mean that under the act that we're doing this, the review of this bylaw, that it remains live and the one that's in place doesn't lapse?
Correct.
Okay, cool, thank you.
Question.
Councillor Musa.
Two questions for me. One is, given that we local water's done well, it's got a very tight time frame, and development contributions is definitely going to be included in that if they voiced it. Just listen first. Does leaving this line on the table cause any problems?
It's a land drainage bylaw left line have.
Oh, okay, jump the head, sorry.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Grab that question for the next month.
So then I've got a question that I've been raised on. That I should have waited what's earlier. So clause 9.1, I actually agree with the submitter that it is not clear, and in red it doesn't make it clear either. If you look at that on page 6, it talks about what council structures are. It appears that anything, what obstruction is, and it appears that anything could be an obstruction, including the council said that didn't complete. So I'm just wondering when it says that council can, should that list not be done, and of course it can't be done without permission, written permission. And so there's an onus on the landowner, I presume, to go and do it. Otherwise, council can do it and then charge them for it. So it looks like they're being charged twice if the work, if that obstruction was caused by previous work not done, or by council below falling in the waterway, or whatever. So I actually am not, I'm not happy with that. I think it's makes it difficult and creates extra bureaucracy. So can you define for me, please, as a question, what do you mean by these obstructions? So obviously buildings with rooms and everything else, I understand that, but it's not clear. It's include anything, and anything that's actually an obstruction.
I'll ask Brian to answer.
And there's a supplementary question to that as well. You can answer that one first.
Is that clause 6.1?
9.1.
9.1. It's anything that is likely to obstruct the free flow of the.
So weird.
So it's anything that's going to obstruct that flow.
Yeah. Even if it's not caused by the farmer or through the action. That's what concerns me. It really does need to be.
So,
Any obstruction
yes.
on the water flow, but they are money rates for council to keep it clean and managed.
Yes.
Don't you see that as being?
We might have a technical expert. There's a time when a landowner would be required to remove that obstruction as opposed to when council would remove it.
Yes, Chairman. It would be a case of where the landowner has caused that obstruction through work in and around the land range or the drain areas. So if they've had equipment in there and caused the collapse of the part of the drain, or they've planted trees that have then fallen across the drains and stuff like that would be areas, times that they would be liable for the removal of those. And they would be picked up through the inspection process to ensure that the drainage areas are compliant with the bylaw.
Thanks for that. That makes it clear, because that's what I would assume would make sense. And having written notice and everything else is given the bureaucracy and the responses that I've seen, I've heard. What about, this is my supplementary question, that should be in there so it's clear that it's landowner caused obstructions. But please identify which trees being planted by council, not being planted by the landowner. And the second thing, though, so if you put that in there, make it clearer. The second one is that asking for written permission, I think, can be slow. What about 48 hours notice from the landowner that they are going to go in there and do the job?
I would believe that would probably depend on the extent of the job or work that the project that they were wanting to undertake, as to how much involvement we would need to ensure that that wasn't going to then adversely affect the drainage system.
Clearing an obstruction that they caused, we would be focused on that. They give you 48.
Based on just that, I suppose it still would depend on the extent. Like if they had a shelter amount of trees that all blew over in a storm, and there was 30 trees along the drain, that could cause some significant damage with the size of equipment that you need.
Yeah, but just so I'm clear, rather than getting written permission to do it, have about 48 hours notice that they intend to, they've got 48 hours to respond and then come back. I think that's really yes. Thank you.
I'm going to move an amendment. So the questions that you ask are aligned with the amendment that I'm moving. Now my amendment is, I'll get it back. I'm going to move that Council A leave the report land drainage bylaw analysis of submissions and adoption of amended bylaw to lie until after the district plan deliberations to enable the new council to decide if they wish to have the maps and rules in the district plan for land drainage. B, staff explore the inclusion of land drainage areas and rules via the district plan. So I still would like that undertaken. And C, that the chief executive continue to explore Northern Regional Council taking over the management of land drainage and report back to council by, and I'm suggesting March 2025, because I believe the district plan will come back to council for consideration in April.
Yeah, well, it's to be approved by May, so that's probably reasonable. April.
And then I also know that go live date for our, I know that stormwater and drainage isn't included in our local water done well regional model, but a part of it is exploring shared services. So that would tie in this week before that happens.
Yeah, I think that actually is great. Rather than
you can use it actually, and I'll get our local governance girls to make their touch typists. I'll get that. I'll pass to Councillor Research and then we'll come over to you, Member Balky, Councillor Research.
Yeah, well, I support that. As one is, there's some rewording, as you heard me say. So certainly NRC, as the CEO raised, that needs to be investigated, and the timeframe we've got to bring some of these things in is pushing it. But by doing that, it allows us to deal with things for the industry.
Member Bell, thank you for travelling down to take your chair's place as well. It's great to have you at the table. Pass to you.
Thank you. Thanks so much. I just wanted to speak on behalf of the Te Huka Community Board in support of our submission that we made. It's all in the paperwork, so I won't bore you with reading it, but basically, as a bit of a summary, we were seeking decision from the council this is in our submission, to amend the infrastructure section by adding objectives, policies and rules, providing for the existing mapped drainage district drains to ensure the ability to clean, unblock, access and service the drainage channels in the Kaitaia, Waiharara, Kaikino and Motutangi drain area as defined in the Far North District, Far North Land District Drainage Bylaw 2019. So we had a meeting the other day and we passed a motion that the land drainage bylaw be left to lie on the table until after the district plan deliberations to enable the new council to decide if they wish to have the maps and rules in the district plan for land drainage or have the land drainage bylaw. The Land Drainage Act of 1908 can be utilised for the enforcement of land drainage matters between now and the district plan deliberations. It has more statutory powers than the bylaw anyhow, and that the current 2019 bylaw can also be utilised in the meantime until it expires. So we are in support of leaving it to lie on the table. Regarding the NRC, certainly would be open to looking into those options as long as it is put in we would like a consideration to be put in the district plan regardless.
What Member Balki Roger has captured there as that recommendation from our community board, can you incorporate that in the work in B? Do we have that to put it up here?
Sure. Yes, to make sure that, so when I see the resolution, I probably draft resolutions.
We'll go to Councillor McNally in the meantime.
Yeah, I think it should lie on the table. There's a couple of things that we need to include in there. One of the questions I have is if it's to be mapped in the PDP and rules, what's the timing for that? Is it another full consultation process? Obviously be a cost. The other thing is the urban stormwater impact on the land drainage rated land. There's a lot, as we increase the impervious surfaces in the little townships around the place, it's going to impact it. So staff actually need to implement the current bylaw to ensure those drains are clear so that that urban stormwater that's discharging into there can be carried away. I support Guy Allroy, our CV's update. Let's have a look at moving this to NRC. And then the only other thing is on page 27 of the report, but page 54 of these documents, the staff analysis, the submissions collectively underscore the need for comprehensive and accurate mapping of drainage assets and drainage. I have seen the drainage maps, they're not that bad, but they need to be updated by the Senate. Clear representation of jurisdictional responsibilities between Far North Council and Northern Regional. Procedural safeguards, including rating boundary reviews and appeals process. And bylaw adoption, delaying the bylaw adoption until these issues are resolved. Now, the key one, well, there's a few there, but one of the things we have to consider is these people that are rated under the drainage bylaw, they pay for those drains to be maintained. And it hasn't been, as our deputation from Mrs. King indicated, it's not happening. So somehow we have to make sure that in the next annual plan, we've got sufficient money to ensure it happens. And I'm sure the Te Huka Community Board will. I do wonder if we've got a disjoint between the drainage committees, the community board, who's in charge and who's driving this. But I'm happy to see it lie on the table as well, but those are the additional things we need to, no matter what happens, we have to keep working.
I'll just, because our resolution, our recommendation always that council change the wording for it to make sense. Even in the printed agenda, it doesn't make sense in full, but we'll go to Deputy Mayor Shipford.
Thanks. I just wanted to make a couple of points, but also just check in with staff on the progress of attributing the rates that have been collected for land drainage areas and the works that have been delivered.
Yeah, so.
Well, that's probably for the infrastructure team.
Yeah, we'll be good.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Stratford. The drains hadn't been cleared for several years. There was not a contract in place. At the start of last financial year, we implemented a 3-year contract. So all we need to do now is raise a purchase order at the start of each financial year. So those drains have been used using the rates that have been accumulated and collected, but there is some separate work that we intend to do. There are, as Councillor McNally said, there are some that are contributing from the urban catchment area, and it ultimately ends up in the land drainage areas. And so what we're planning to do is model all of the flow that ends up there, and then apportion all of the rates to all of the contributors, not just those that are at the tail end. So more work to be done in the future, but maintain them.
Yeah. Excellent. Thank you.
You there, Mayor Walker?
Councillor Rowditch.
Morning, everybody. Just to you, Roger. Will the new land drainage bylaws make an improvement to the spraying and the cleaning of council drains in Kaitaia, Wahara, Kaikina and Motutangi? Because that's the issue with the farmers up there. You know, they're not worried about the bloody bylaws. Will this new bylaw make that improvement? Can you answer that?
So my answer to that is the bylaw as it exists right now, if it was enforced, that would be happening. If the implementation of it had been in place, that would have happened. The new bylaw is a review of the existing bylaws. Some changes have been made to it to make it clearer, and also reference the maps. So by adopting the bylaw would not make any difference to that.
Thank you.
Councillor Besic for right of reply.
Oh, good.
Right, I will put the motion, and just noting that it is an alternate motion to that printed, so that council leave the report to lie until after the proposed district plan deliberations to enable the new council to decide if they wish to have the maps and rules in the district plan land drainage. Request the chief executive explore the inclusion of land drainage areas and rules via the district plan. Request the chief executive explore the opportunity of Northern Regional Council taking over the management of land drainage and report back to council by March 2026. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Councillor Rowditch, was that against?
Can you record that, please?
Aye, yep. Aye.
And I'll call for abstentions now. Thank you, Councillor Floyd. And that has enough to be carried. Thank you. Councillor Rowditch, I think it was okay. Councillor Rowditch, sorry, I just want to record your vote properly. Were you in favour of leaving it to lie or against?
No, in favour, Mayor Moko.
Thank you. Fine. We'll go now to something less contentious. Development contributions policy now. Item 6.2 on page 82. Utu Hakawhanaki, development contributions policy, analysis of submission and adoption. And as before, I'm going to open for questions. Oh, okay, I'll start with the questions. Roger, you're on the hot seat today, mate. In this, we have a recommendation to delay the commencement date of our Utu Hakawhanake Development Conditions Policy to the 1st of July 2026. What options are there, or how prepared would this organisation be to move that date forward if it was amended?
Hasn't been ready to actually enforce a development contributions policy. I would say that pushing that date forward we would struggle, but the main thing that would cause that would be allowing us enough time to get a rating and revenue policy in place. So that date there is realistic, but I'd say very moving it forward.
Let's do it right.
Yes, that's for us. Yeah.
Next question. I know within our I know within the policy, I'm very excited to finally see a policy on the agenda and on the table for consideration by this council. But I note there that we have purposely left out, or they're in there, but we don't charge for them, sports, fields, parks and libraries. We have a brand new sports field called Te Pua Waitanga, the Bay of Islands Sports Hub in Waipapa, which has had a stage 1 completed, but any further stages or implementation unfunded. We worked to get a governing body in place over that, and are currently out for expressions of interest or interviewing. Or
just the process of working through that appointments panel.
And once that will then go public for calling for expressions of interest. Yeah. This council is not going to have any money, honey, to fully realise the dreams and aspirations of the people of Greater Bay of Islands for that sports hub. Actually, for the district, because I know that I live here in Kaikoui and we'll be going over there. Right? So what way could a development contributions policy capture funding to contribute to what is needed at that sports hub? And that's just the one I think off the top of my head. That's a high growth area. We're going to need further sports infrastructure at that space. And this is a way that I can see us flipping the ticket of developers so that they are contributing to that. Because I understand from a Lagoima request that that has been 100% council funded. That previously we had thought that reserves from previous development contributions had contributed to that, but that's not the case.
Just last one.
I can answer.
Sorry, this one. So financial. Yeah. Okay. So in the early days of this, of working through the process to determine what would go in and out of a development contribution policy, we put forward that we'd have a financial contribution chapter in the district plan, and that would be implemented as part of a plan change. There was a window of opportunity to bring it into the district plan process, but that was quickly shut late last year. So right now, the development contributions policy, it's purely around the waters networks and the transport network. Social infrastructure, reserves, parks, playgrounds, sports fields, that was being put to go into a financial contribution chapter of the district plan.
We've missed that opportunity though. So what work could be done to include it in a development contribution policy?
We'll refer to Brian on that one.
Yeah, so any infrastructure for growth that has been identified in our annual plan, long-term plan, infrastructure strategy can go into our development contributions policy. So the projects that are currently in this policy that you see before you are all the projects that have been identified in those documents. But the policy has been set up to allow for easily allow for additions when those projects go through that process and go through the LTP or infrastructure strategy processes, and then we can add them to the development contributions policy.
And I'd add to that then also toilets, which we have 73, 69 that we own, and we no longer have the Tourism Infrastructure Fund. More communities are calling out for more toilets on the daily to me, and we don't have a funding, even 50% share funding mechanism now to even achieve that. That could be another way that we could identify those in next long-term plan.
Any infrastructure that's related to growth, yes, can go into the development contributions policy.
Do you need that by resolution to do the work required, seen as the financial contributions chapter's door has now closed to actually do the work required to see that for, say, the go live date?
So the way that the policy has been set up, it allows us to use either the development contributions policy or the financial contributions chapter. So there is no issue there, as long as we're not double dipping. So because financial contributions is currently not going ahead,
we close that door. We won't mention that anymore.
Yeah, the DCs are suitable, but generally, I mean, the easiest way to update
for me to get you to do the work through we are going to collect financial contributions via this policy for Te Pua Waitanga for stages, say 2 and 3 of Te Kākahu, our new civic hub here in Kaikohe. What do you need to do? What do I need to put in the wording of this so that someone in this organisation does the work, so that then gets added in, so it's not 0, 0, 0 next to libraries, next to sports fields, next to toilets, next to reserves, and that this council for growth projects is collecting money from developers to contribute towards that social infrastructure that our district needs.
Through every annual plan process, we should be reviewing and amending and adding those projects into
I'd like to make a would, so it will be. So how do I make sure that's happening by resolution?
Can I suggest a resolution that council staff explore the further additions to the development contributions policy to incorporate social infrastructure?
Did you capture that? Right, and E, we're going to add it. Okay, I've been hogging the question, so we're going to go to Kōwhai and then council research.
Just following on from Kahika's question, wanting to get a kōrero from SLT member that looks after the annual plan on that process.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we'll make sure that we have a parallel work stream that's considering these in each annual plan process so that the appropriate capital projects are captured and considered under the DC policy for elected member consideration.
And sorry, the development levies legislation is set to come in July, possibly next year. And we heard from the DIA that it would be introduced into different councils tranche by tranche. So do you recall what date they were looking to bring in? I think it was late 27.
22.
Oh, that's right. Yes, it was 2030. Yeah, so that's why we're not waiting for development levies. One of the advantages that the fact sheet on development levies identified was having a little bit like what we're trying to achieve through the revenue and funding policy, having levers to not stifle development, but enable it where there's where somebody puts forward a good case, and we're going to put those levers in place with the delay of it being to July 2026. Is that what we're achieving?
In the revenue financing policy.
Yeah. Do we need to address it through the rates remission policies? Oh no, it's not rates, it's development contributions. So it would sit within the revenue financing policy. So sorry, what I'm saying, right, in the development levies fact sheet from government, they identify some form of applying for a time payment
for your development contribution. And we're not doing that through the DC policy, but we are doing it through the revenue policy.
We do have a clause that allows for payment arrangements on development contribution.
Yeah. Is it, I think one of the submissions identified in, I read all the submissions, but a lot of people don't understand what it's going to be applied to and who's going to qualify for those payment plans. So will you, do we need to also have a resolution to do, a comms campaign to educate people on how it's going to be?
It definitely will be lots of communication.
You mentioned it in the report. Mentioned in the report, but it's not. There's no timeline and there's no clarity on how big that is going to look and what it's going to consist of. We've been criticised over, and I'll talk to this in my corridor, not my questions, but how are you going to address getting the information out so it's not dis and misinformation around the development contributions policy?
Yeah, as part of any implementation plan put in place, as part of that comms and engagement that we do, the comms and engagement plan was put in place as part of putting this together, and then part of the implementation should be communicating with the community how this is going to be implemented.
Have you thought about how you might do that? Like, social media is not working.
Yep, unless Brian,
I've had thoughts about that, and that's about copycatting. Other councils don't reinvent the wheel. They have on their websites, they have a district development contribution page dedicated to that. It has online calculators, has so you just put your address in and then it pumps out, and it could actually be a system that hooks up with our district plan rules as well. So that could be something that we look, investigate further. But that seems to be working for Auckland councils and all of our other councils that have those calculators on.
Yeah. And I went through all the IAF stuff as well last week, and I understand that there's some developer agreements which, is it going to be? They stipulated those IAF projects had to have developer agreements, but anybody else that was hooking up outside of those that were signed up to the agreement must pay a DC. Are we capturing that? Because we signed the agreement as well.
In fact, in the IF projects, the specifics around and the dollar figure is the green funding agreements. And then there was a conversation going on around how we actually capture that.
But we're making sure that they're not going to be paying a double. They've already signed up to some form of agreement, their contribution towards the housing project. We're not going to be charging them a per unit cost.
I'm not sure if there actually are any developer agreements in place right now at this point in time. But,
need to be, it's in the clauses.
Yeah. So at the moment, it's a DC charge when this goes live.
Sorry, Roger?
The development contributions charge when this goes live on 1st of July. So that's where it is right now. But unless, of course, there's a process to go through about applying for consent.
Between now and then, we would still use DAs as the...
Correct. That's our vehicle right now, is a developer agreement.
That's all the questions.
I've got Councillor Vucic with questions and Councillor Floyd with questions.
Going back to what I said at the beginning, jumping ahead, obviously what concerns me. I actually agree with the development contributions population, like you said, happen. So resolve to delay the commencement date with local water done well. Is that going to have any impact because they want to move quite quickly?
Yeah, I think Virginia on that one there. I think that the same question around levies, because the levy rules going
it's from 2030.
Yeah, by 2030. So we've still got 4 and a few window going on the time frame for go live. To still collect development contributions.
Yeah, but that the new energy arrives, so we'll need some income. I'm not going to be sitting around.
Yeah,
yes, you know what I mean. So I think you say it's not going to cause a problem. Okay, I'll take it. So on page 85, there's a number of submitters actually asked that spending request confirmation that DC funds are spent in the area they are collected. Now, being a development contribution, and given what's actually happened legally, remember developers have got big pockets and they'll challenge this court of law, and that has been done in the past. So I would say that is a must, because I think the law requires it. But when you do a development, in particular catchment area, the impact of that development is where the money should go. And therefore, that would naturally include. That's how I see it. Is that correct?
Yeah, through the chair. So the policy, I think there was, the analysis is stressed that, and there were some changes, I think, proposed. I think we're looking at page 95 in your...
Yeah, 95, but there's also 85.
You still see at 3.4 geographic equity there. Yeah, and so obviously council will ring fence. So what I've done is I've gone and put that into the policy, I've made that change into the policy, where it clearly states that council will ring fence that those DCs collected in their catchment go back into that catchment to address that.
I think it's legally it's more than that. It's the DC that the growth that developer is causing, the impact on water, sewage, or whatever it be, roads. There needs to be evidence that shows that that's what it is. So it's in keeping with that amount paid. So it has to be in that catchment area. The roads can extend a bit more, but it has to show that this is the impact. And so,
Clause 40.3 is in there, page 205 of this.
Yeah, so it naturally fits in there. So just
ring fence, fair catchment.
Yeah. So and on page 121, this goes along a similar line being Mr. Hazy, public toilets. Yeah, library, sports field and public toilets. Can you give me an example of growth that occurs where it requires a public toilet?
An example of where growth occurs where it requires a public toilet.
That you can claim DCs on?
I don't have that calculation in hand on how many more people we have in a particular catchment that requires an additional public toilet.
Can I suggest one? So I'll suggest one, like the White Kappa development that occurred there with all the shops. The shops have got toilets for their staff, not available to the public, and people need a public toilet. So I can see a DC would be then put on the developer saying you're doing this, but hey, we need public toilets here because there's people tracked it in. Like that's one. So remember that one. But when you go in building houses, for example, I'd be concerned because I don't know if it will stack up to say, oh, we need public toilets from a housing development, because that's the people that are there have houses and they're paying development contribution re the impact on the sewage system. You don't want to do it twice. They're paying it through their residents basically staying on either the flats or in the houses.
A community infrastructure strategy would help inform that. That was if you had some rules in place on where and what, depending on growth. Of course, there does need to be a sewage system to accept that additional capacity as well, or it's either on-site disposal.
One more question, which sort of relates as well. So if a retirement village was built and they set aside, because I want to make it look nice, they set aside.
I didn't understand the
so we're say a development build a retirement village, which that happens, as you know, and they set aside parks and reserves for residents, but it's all within that entity. If you're looking at a development contribution for parks and reserves outside of that, is that different?
If we're looking at outside of the catchment?
Yeah, because they're building a retirement village and they put reserves within parks inside the retirement village.
Yeah.
We're looking at development contribution, which you've got zeroed out at the moment, but we can investigate that. Just concerned that we're not double dipping on that because the parks and reserves have been set up as being like a little village already. And so if you're going to go and say, well, but you need to do this one in Terry Creek, for example, Tyler Park, and put money into that, I'm not sure that's good. I'm looking at ways the developer could argue against a development contribution.
Yeah, so because we haven't included parks and reserves to be left, what's going to be left to a financial contribution chapter in this plan. So if we were
Well, I
to
mentioned that anyway.
Yep. So you're breaking the rules. So the if we were to include it, we'd have to consider the catchment. So it's the same principle. Right. That with the development, with the where the development pressure is collected is where it will be spent. And that's all determined by a decision of council of what the catchment would look like for a DC. If you take into account parks and reserves.
Is there any more questions?
Thank you. We'll go to Councillor Foy, then Councillor McNally for questions.
A number of questions, but I can see that you've got Virginia there, who's been amazing for our council. So my questions relate to the changes under A. So our district has a huge number of petty settlements that are happening. So what's been, and we've seen a large number of government led by iwi, by Māori, and Kawakawa, for example, that's a giant development to the tunes of tens of millions of dollars, is what's written here under 34.4 on page 102, those changes. Essentially, so let's just say there was an upgrade and a 200 house lot subdivision that connects into council sewage. The way I read this is that they will pay no development contributions. Is that correct? Even though they're connecting onto all council's reticulation?
Is it on Māori land?
Well, it can, like, let's just say that, for example, the He Punawai Trust in Kaitaia, that was general title and it was changed to Whenua Māori and then connected to council's reticulation. So I guess the question is, in terms of the type of land it is it creating demand on council's infrastructure for its connecting to the reticulation? Because there's no limited scale here. Right. Let's just say there was 1,000 lot subdivision all connecting into council's infrastructure. What this is saying is that if the land is changed from general title to Whenua Māori, that there would be no contribution to the cost for council to connect. Is that correct?
Technically, yes, it's correct. However, in order for to change general title to Māori title, there has to be a whakapapa link that has not been changed, that has not been cut. And so therefore, for me, the policy is clear that it's not there for commercial or industrial or profit. It's there to house whānau, because that is the aspiration of Māori. It's not to use their whenua Māori, which they've gone and put into Māori title, and come up against the other barriers that are consistent with that, to turn around and sell their whenua. The kapa and tikanga of Māori is to retain for their mokopuna. And this policy reflects that kaupapa and that whakaaro in the sense that it's there to support that aspiration of Māori with their Māori whenua.
Can you reference at all what any other councils do, noting that we have the largest amounts of whenua Māori in the country? But I know that Rotorua, for their equivalent DCs, do they have similar exemptions, or what have they got?
They've got similar exemptions. Other ones like Kaipara, for instance, which is not a good one, they've actually ripped them all out. So you've got, it depends on I feel that it depends on the appetite of the council, how far they would want to assist their Māori and their Māori communities. And Rotorua is the difference with Rotorua is that they're very tourist. Their tourism base is most of their GDP. So when they're looking at tourism, if you look at their costings around their community infrastructure like parks, public toilets, they're very high. And that's because of that demand. So households are paying those high demands in that area and low demands in others. But for Māori, whenua Māori, their ones are, I think they're sitting at around about 75% rebate. But that doesn't come through their DCs, it comes through their rating policy, which is a totally different policy and mechanism for council. So when we're looking at just DCs, you can look at Kaipara, for instance, that has zero. They have zero aspirations to help their Māori. You look at Auckland Council again, they use rate rebate, but they charge DCs but not on whenua Māori. It's around those general titles that have turned into whenua Māori, they charge them because they see that as being a profit move.
So I have a key question about this in the Three Waters entity. So there's a Three Waters entity across Northland with all three councils, and we all have different development contributions policies. So let's just say a scenario. Let's just say we adopt this today, and then let's just say there was 1,000 lot subdivision that came in on whenua Māori. They all wanted to connect to sewer, water, stormwater, roads. It's exempt from development contribution. Then how would the Three Waters entity cover that cost in order to provide all that infrastructure? Would our council have to pay that, or do we have to have agreement from the Three Waters entity in order to cover that cost?
Well, the situation as it is, as per the policy, the council will cover that cost. Sorry, but going to Three Waters entity, obviously it's going up to the Three Waters entity that have to cover at the moment. Yeah, sorry, yeah, to the Three Waters entity.
Is there even any whenua Māori with the correct zoning, whether in our current district plan or proposed district plan, that would ever be able to have that scale of development?
At the moment, I can't answer that question specifically. Yeah,
I do not see where we have urban whenua Māori that would ever house 1,000 lot subdivision
connected to
civic infrastructure.
Yeah.
Oh no, I'm genuinely asking the question because if so, great. I'd love to know where, but I just would like to balance the questions that I have as well in this space with what is the actual whenua Māori scope landscape across the far north.
Through the chair, I did some investigation around the catchment maps that we have, because don't forget the DCs only apply to those catchment maps.
Yeah.
So all that whenua Māori that's outside of those catchment maps are exempt from DCs anyway.
And in general, and outside of the scope of the maps is also exempt.
Yes.
Just making that clear.
Yeah.
And so also too, so what I looked at, I did a quick look at Kaikoura here on the map, and we've got some that are outside, like right at the edges of Kaikoura here. It just hit the area of benefit. But in saying that, because we've put a 30-metre buffer around our infrastructure to create those benefit areas, those blocks actually still fall outside. So I wouldn't put my money that yes, they can instantly cock up, because again we've got a 30-metre barrier around a buffer around our area of benefit, our infrastructure. So for those maps. But to answer your question, I find it very hard. Very hard.
Do you think that there will be an anomaly if whenua Māori would connect to council infrastructure? You don't think that there would be large scale?
Large scale, yes, I don't believe it would be large scale.
Okay. It was I only had that question mainly for Kawa because $37 million is a lot of money.
Yeah.
And we're really grateful to central government for helping us in that space. But yeah, in terms of any decisions we're making today, I just wanted to make sure that we weren't signing up to something that we don't know the cost of, particularly with very, very expensive, mainly sewerage infrastructure. Yeah. Well, it's good to hear you've done that research. Thank you. So in terms of other questions I had were around the maps, because in the report it says to attach maps, but I've looked through about 3 times. I can't see any maps in this paper, but you have given us some maps previously.
I've done it again.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
You gave us some maps previously, but so basically the maps are just for Kawakawa, Kiri, Kaikohe. So Hiku had no development contribution, even though we have the second fastest growing area. What happened for those areas? We still have developer agreements. Let's just say there was I've been using extreme scenarios, 100 lots. And do we still have the powers to have development agreements outside of the mapped areas?
Yes.
Yes. And what is the number of blocks? Is it 10 when a development agreement kicks in, or is it 5? Is it 50?
There's no number. Be for one.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a concern without having any clear direction about when it would kick in, because we don't even have a connections policy. How do people know if they can even connect or not? I know there's a lot. Oh, sorry.
I was going to say that sort of type of decision would probably come through when the resource consent application came through, because if there was going to be major development, or if they were going to have a serious impact, I'm pretty sure the resource consent team would look at the criteria on the development agreements and the policy, and then use those same streamlined approaches there to approach that developer.
It's in the implementation plan.
Yeah, we will do one day.
Just a reminder that for any, it's got to be projects that have growth related aspect to it. So in our RTP, so that's the get things into the DC policy. So we have to make sure we identify that as part of our long-term plan asset management process.
So my last question was a bit of a, well, I'm not sure if it would be an issue, but in Part C of the resolution, it asks for us to not do it until 1st of July 2026. And to me, I know that there are different departments of council, but I'm thinking, okay, so we do this today, we're in October, the district plan goes to council and potentially gets adopted in May next year. There are all these new rules. If they go in and get all the consents approved before that date, they don't have to pay. Why aren't we doing this from today?
We require a revenue finance policy to be amended right now to make it to make this legally work. So your DC policy needs to go hand in hand with your revenue and financing policy, which you need to review and then get adopted by council as well.
Well, given it's going to save us millions and millions of dollars, don't you think that would be a priority for our council?
So the time frame that's been given is tied in with making sure we can get that done in the appropriate, following the appropriate processes we've got, policy reviews.
I'm sorry, but in my view, if I was going to save millions of dollars, I would employ a new staff member to make sure that got done in a timely manner.
It's not so much about the number of staff, it's about the process we need to go through, because we need to actually publicly notify that. Sorry, publicly consult on it under the local government act.
Will that be done with annual plan consultation?
We could tie it up with the annual plan process for a consultation perspective. We take it out as part of the annual plan, and if we get do the legwork right now on the research and drafting of policy. Yeah, we're not locked in the annual plan.
Well, I'm of the view that we should do a special consultative process, because we've been waiting so long to get this. And I'm sorry, it has been said previously that we should have copy and pasted Kaipara's policies years ago. But now, okay, we'll be positive. We've got Virginia.
Parts of Kaipara's.
But in all seriousness, as part of C, that's what I was thinking. I think we should do a special consultative process and have a date prior, at least prior to the new district plan being adopted by council.
So another thing on the 1st of July, it does tie in with the annual plan adoption. So there is a linkage in there which makes it work a little bit easier. Fast tracking this, for lack of a better term, would require us.
Acknowledging this is fast tracked because I forced you to do it.
Yes, and then fast tracking to get it implemented and the revenue and finance policy to go through its process for public consultation analyse the submissions when they come back, bring a paper back to council for approval. That's the standard process you need to go through to get it across the line.
Are you saying you don't want to do it because it's more work for staff?
No, I'm just saying there's a process and it takes time.
We do need to follow the process to make that amendment to the revenue and finance policy, but also aligning with the annual plan allows us to align with any amendments to the DC policy as well. So if there's any changes to the schedule of assets, so any community infrastructure or anything like that that's coming in, because we would do that through the annual plan. So it allows that to happen and all the consultation to occur. It gives the public plenty of notice, which was one of the key components that came out of the submissions, and it allows us to put all the processes in place and do all the communication that's required, because as noted earlier, the public is quite confused about what to do around DC, so that allows us all of that time to set everything up. And if we were to align it with...
I take note that the public is quite confused around it. The public is quite confused about everything that this organisation does, and I don't want to single out DCs themselves as being the only thing that the public will be confused. Communication is key for every single thing this council does. I've got Councillor McNally and Councillor Rusich. Have you finished your questions, Councillor? Councillor McNally.
I'll just try and get your question. Page 203, 43 of the document, it talks about community outcomes. Does the change at central government level to the four well-beings, is that being catered for? See, you mentioned social and economic as well as cultural vitality.
Can you repeat the page? I'm sorry, Councillor.
Page 203 of the 43 of your report. Community outcomes. Has there been some change or proposed change with well-beings? Don't know.
The local government systems improvements bill is still a bill. It's not an act yet.
Oh, I don't. Yeah. But that federally deals, that's my question, I guess.
To do a review of everything.
Okay, the next one. By earlier questions, you talked about needing to delay because we don't have a rating revenue policy. We don't have a connections policy. Is that correct? That's, you want to delay
your rating policy, yes.
You can't start this till July 26 because you've got to introduce these other couple of things.
Well, yeah.
Okay.
Rating policy, yes.
I'll get to where I want to get to. You talk about, you say there's a clause in here somewhere that allows financial contributions that can be added or allowed for that is in this development. What clause is that? You said it, right?
There's a clause that allows us to include to add development contributions for community infrastructure. I was just clarifying that the community infrastructure. So earlier we discussed how financial contributions, the financial contributions chapter of the proposed chapter of the district plan would be for community infrastructure, but this policy has also been set up to allow community infrastructure to go into the development contributions policy. So we can do either or.
Well, the way I understood it, you said financial contributions can be, or developer agreements, can be allowed for and are allowed for a clause in this policy now that we're looking at right now.
I just think it's a distinction that that I think the point there is we can't be double dipping, and there's quite strict rules about you can't be charging a DC and an FC. Same thing. So the point of that is to make that distinction. I'm sorry, FC financial.
So there isn't a clause in here that specifically says it's in another part of the policy, part of the framework of the council.
Well, specifically around financial contributions.
Which clause is it? Which clause allowed us to go to a developer, here's your development contribution, which allows for the growth infrastructure assets, water, sewage, stormwater, roads, which allows us to say we want you to pay for a new hall in Kaitaia, for instance.
So the DC policy can be amended to include that. the approach that's been taken here is we were going to.
Hang on, how can you amend that when you've been public submissions on this as it is?
Or we can amend the policy as part of a policy process.
No,
Public.
all right, let's go to your, under the recommendation, under B, you want to adopt the contribution. And then B, it says delay the commencement. Are we adopting delaying? Given that we need financial contribution, rating revenue policy, connections policy, something else that Councillor Floyd mentioned. 257 submissions received. Which of those have led to the amendments under 1 to 4 and 8? What was the other?
All of our policies have a commencement date that starts later than the adoption. So often you have a council meeting where you would adopt it on a Thursday, and we generally put the commencement date for the following Monday, for example. So here we're saying to delay that commencement date until the 1st of July.
Next Monday.
It's not next Monday, it'll be the 1st of July 2026.
You understand the date, I can read 26. I know that's a year away as well. I just think there's too much missing bits in here to actually do anything with it. Anyway, move on. That's my questions.
Councillor Research.
Just going back to what Councillor Floyd said, you mentioned the high government input into Kaiko, actually in Kaiko as well. But that, as you all know, and it does relate to what Councillor McNally's saying as well, that was conditional. There was a condition in that, in the agreement, that is the DCs were to be, a certain percentage of DC, I've seen the documents, were to be collected from the developer. So that's a separate agreement, so that would stand, wouldn't it?
My final question is, within the policy itself, Part A2 on page 6 of the policy has the commencement date as 1st of July. If we were to bump that, pull that back to March 2026, I'm looking probably at Charlie more than any solid factors the policy.
If we want to put to March and try and speed up that process. So we put a date in there on purpose, 1st of July 2026.
To align with
to allow time for this to be done at a pace that we think we can correctly communicate with the public, we can correctly consult on it, we can review the submissions. There might be 200, 300 submissions in this one as well that we need to analyse and go through. So it's not a case of throwing more people at it. It's a process we're going through. We could speed up some of that, but all I would say is if we do that, there is the risk that we might make a mistake. There is the risk that we might inadvertently miss a submission, and there is the public perception risk that we're not following due process and get criticised by the public that we are fast-tracking and speeding through the adoption of a policy. Those are they can be acknowledged, and we could accept those risks as part of bringing it forward.
I'll accept that. I'll leave it as it is, but members have the option to do amendments when we get there. My final question is, within this policy itself, can you talk me through how the schedule, the growth projects will be formally identified, and do we need a clause to review annually in line with the annual plan or long-term plan processes? How do other councils do it? Because I'm just trying to figure out how we will know and how the public will know, because to be fair, I've probably read this like 3 times, right? I've bloody glazed over it by now. But you know a lot better than me. Like, where can I find how that is captured within the policy itself so people understand that, okay, I picked this up today and I've read it, but actually tomorrow when I pick it up, it will include that if I'm going to be doing a subdivision in Waipapa, then I'm going to be contributing to like where does it say in this? So people know how often this is going to be reviewed and updated.
Through the chair, it's actually in the policy at point 7, page 7. Yes, page 7, it says policy review, point 8. It says the policy must be reviewed every 3 years.
That's only with long-term plan.
The long-term plan.
So this will be reviewed again before the next long-term plan.
Mm-hmm.
So we're potentially adopting this today, coming into force for next year in June or July. But then the following year after that, 2028, will be the long-term plan year. So that's when this will get reviewed and updated in any case.
Yeah, but
because you'll do all the work by then to include libraries, parks and reserves, sports fields.
potentially, yeah, if that
Unless there's any annual plan growth projects added.
Okay.
yeah, and remember it's a schedule that captures all of that. So that schedule can be, amended.
And it's under the Local Government Act, we must review it.
Now I'm going to move this with but I'll get it up because I remember passing the GGs about 1,000 questions ago somewhere.
Can I just put a order for this? Foreshadow?
Yes, you can.
I'd like to, given we're 3.5 days away from an election, or working days, I actually would like to see this lie on the table till the November meeting. So the staff can come back and give us clear timelines, read the policies required and when they will be delivered, given we're not going to be adopting this till July 26th and anything.
I'd like some questions around that because my understanding is because this council that are sitting here today are the ones that instigated the work required, also the formal submission process. And we're the ones to receive that. It's appropriate that this is the council that actually adopts, but can somebody give me some formal advice on that? Noting this is a foreshadowed motion should this one fail.
So we don't have legal representation here. I'm not sure whether...
Why do we not have legal representation at a formal council meeting, one that has got considerable items on it that require legal expertise? I've got a team in law degree that's come in handy in 3 years, but...
Yeah, sorry, I was going to say that I would ask that advice from there, but I'm wondering if Democracy Service has any advice on that. But from what I know, from where I sit, is it that that process can traverse trainees and councils for adoption. So there has been situations where we've been halfway through a process and new councils come in and they've adopted the work that was initiated by the previous council.
Also because the project was started well before the election period.
Okay. Secondly, moved. So the motion is that council approves the recommendations of the Utuhaka Whanake Development Contributions Policy with those changes from the original. Adopts the Utuhaka Whanake Development Contributions Policy in Attachment 2. Resolves to delay the commencement date to the 1st of July 26. Authorises the C to make any changes, but also requests that the C explore including parks and reserves, libraries, sports fields and public toilets in the Utuhaka Whanake Development Contributions Policy and report back to council in June 2026 on. I'll pass to you, Kawhai.
Thanks. I'm supporting the resolution today because this is a process that started actually in 2020. 2020. And we were actually given incorrect information back in that day. And anyway, I won't dwell on that, but we were given a timeline in 2019 for the adoption of this to happen first, to be in place for July 2024. And, now we're looking at adopting something that will take effect from the 1st of July 2026. So this is not a surprise. We've been deputised. We've had groups come to us over the last 10 years asking council to bring back contributions because of the impact that the growth infrastructure that we have been doing, the impact that it's having on ratepayers, where developers are putting a growth demand on everyday ratepayers. And, some of you have seen my video, growth pays for growth. The only areas that this DC policy is going to apply to are areas that have actually got growth projects in the long-term plan. Unfortunately, Kaitaia did all their growth stuff, thanks to Councillor Boyd and the Community Board. That's already been done. So any new growth that's identified either through an annual plan change or through the long-term plan, then Kaitaia can be picked up and the DC policy will apply to you. The same goes for Doubtless Bay community. We know projects need to be done there for that growth, but there's nothing in the long-term plan yet. So some of the submissions wanted us to not put this in place because of the impact on the construction industry, that this isn't going to have an impact on the construction industry. It's already happening. And there is a payment plan in the policy. So we're doing this for the communities that are impacted by growth, that are paying for infrastructure that's being done to them that they're not even going to see. Elderly in their 70s and 80s are paying for stuff that's occurring in their area that they're not even going to, see the benefit of. And we were questioned on the fact that the development levies were coming in. We're not going to see the benefit of that until 2030. When I say we, I mean us as ratepayers, as residents in our district. Just on, the community infrastructure that's identified in E. I know Steve tunes me out a little when I start talking, Councillor McNally, but we are going to be able to charge on a public hall through either financial contributions or development contributions if it's identified that it's a growth project. The likelihood of that is very low because we have heaps of halls per person. So probably not a good example. Hurry up. How much more time have I got? 1 minute. We need to put this in place because we adopted a Kiri Waipapa structure plan. If we don't put this in place, we're going to have an adverse impact on the ratepayers that are struggling today. Kia ora.
Kia ora, tēnā koe. Councillor Foy.
As we've already talked about how long it's taken to get here, so I'm glad we're finally here. One matter that we haven't talked about today is financial contributions. And the reason that I support development contributions instead of financial contributions is anyone that ever knows anything about consenting is they know that developers will appeal those financial contributions under their black and blue because the court system and the RMA system allows appeals because it's part of the district plan, which is why we need a development contribution policy, and we have needed it for many years. So we're finally here. I have a different view to staff about the timeframes. I know that the staff want more time, but I'm also aware of the other work programs that are happening, such as the district plan, where we will enable 30 years of more growth for our district within these areas in particular. My view is that the development contribution policy needs to be in place prior to the adoption of the district plan. That to me is a no-brainer, because I know that every single person that wants to do development for those new rules will come in before the policy, and they will just be able to continue for council and ratepayers to pay for the infrastructure. So I do not agree with the 1 July 2026. It has to be, in my view, before the adoption of the district plan, which to allow for that to be done would have to be May or April 2026. I'm happy to push it out just before the district plan comes to the council for deliberations, but in my view, it has to be before that date. Or we are opening the floodgates to get more time where ratepayers are paying for the growth and infrastructure for other people. And I don't think that's fair or reasonable. So what is the last date that could be done before the district plan comes to council?
Well, the district plan as it is right now, MFF's still May to make that decision. So the council to make a decision on the recommendations that are going to issue from the panel. So May is the time frame. Obviously, there'll be appeals. We're expecting appeals. They will push out the district plan adoption and completion for a period of time.
So the other elected members probably don't know, but what happens is when a district plan comes to the council, council can adopt it and it can become partly operative. So there's the parts that go to the appeal and then there's the parts that become operative from that date. So that is why I'm tabling this now and I'm wanting to move an amendment to reflect the last date before the adoption of the district plan so that we can ensure that all that new development, they're paying for that right to connect to our infrastructure, which I think is only fair and reasonable.
So we've got an amendment that's been moved by Councillor Foy, which is to change C's commencement date to...
Would it be 1st of May? 30th of May?
Can just be May.
Okay, could it just be May? Yeah. Because the staff won't have an exact date that...
I'll second.
I will.
Councillor Halkett, how do we do it? Councillor Foy, please speak to your amendment.
No, I've already done that.
Councillor Halkett, how do we do it? Councillor Halkett, how do
Oh,
we
sorry.
Speaking for the amendment. Moving the plan forward. Opening the floor to any members who'd like to speak to the amendment. Otherwise, I'll put
What the
right, I'll put the amendment. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed or abstentions? You've got a new date there for the substantive motion, which I will move. Can I give a seconder for the substantive motion?
Yeah, can I?
Councillor Deputy Mayor Stratford, yes.
Three in favour, put it to the vote.
Would anyone like to speak to the substantive motion? Okay, I'm going to put the motion. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed or abstentions?
Against, recorded please.
Councillor McGill.
What about online?
In line in favour, and that is carried. We are going to have a 5-minute break. See you all then. 10 to. Welcome back to all of the fun here in Paikohe's council chamber, and we are going to the final item for today. Item 7.1, Te Pae with the annual review, which I'll be moving with Joel here, our GG. Acknowledging apologies from our Kaifetiri o Kauti, who is waiting on an airplane now. So my alternate resolution that I'm moving is that we receive the report, receive the Pohiringa Tai Waiuta Golf, and that false Waiuta key performance report be released following the election period. This has been, the one in your agendas has been
Sanitized.
Well, I was trying to think of a more euphemistic term to use than sanitised, because it included its pre-election period and appropriate suitable photos and comments to be made about standing candidates. I know that there will be some things that staff will have to also look into within this, but I would like it released in full as appropriate. So I'm moving that amendment. Alternate motion, if I could get a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Vusic. I am sad and happy. I was just going to speak to Reo, but I'll try and speak. I'm sad that we didn't get to receive this at our Te Kuaka Te Ao Māori committee, so that our chairs and hapu representatives who have followed this work stream through over this triennium could also celebrate along with us what is a celebration of an award-worthy framework that is going to see and is seeing changes to this organisation that will make this organisation a better place, more functional, more efficient and more effective, not just for Māori, even though it's a Te Ao Māori framework, but for every single one of the 75,000 residents of the Whānau district. And so today I'm very excited to see this report on the table and acknowledge that the report in full includes more information that will be released following the election period, but also it sets up the new council for success and the organisation for success. So I'm very happy to be moving this today and seeing where Te Pae o Uta takes the Whānau District Council in the future. Councillor Vusic.
Happy for the full report to be released for open transparency's sake after the period.
Any other members like to speak? Councillor Raki.
Tautoko nei ngā oro, te kahika, mo te nui, te māpotoru, te hirahiratanga, tēnei ripota, me ngā mahi kua puta o roto I tēnei kaupapa here, I roto I te kaunihira o te iku o te ika. Kaua ko ngā hua ko puta o roto I tēnei ngā kaunihira e rangi ko whāporo atu ki roto I ngā kāinga maha o roto o te tai tokerau, ngā wāhi whākainga, ngā rori puehu, ngā kaimahi ainipia, ka haka tōpui tia, ka haka mana, ki roto i a Far North Holdings, ki roto i a Northland Inc. Mea wai atu reini ko rātou e whai patangana ki rātou te pauni e rau te hiko te. Hoi, e te mea kua wehe tō tātou kaihaka whiti reo, me huri au ki te reo Pākehā. I just want to tautoko hei ka moko. I too would have appreciated seeing the report in full at our Te Kuaka Hui. Only learning today that this is not well, actually only learning 2 days ago that this is not the full report that was not promised, but when I think back to our final Te Kuaka Council Hui that we had, the feedback from the CEO and Democracy Services was that the report was submitted late on the Thursday evening at 5 p.m, which still left 2 days, the Friday and the Monday. And even in that meeting, I could have actually moved a motion to have that report brought to the Te Kuaka Hui in full for everyone to see. I didn't move that motion based on my trust of the words and the reply from the CEO and XLT on that day. Fast forward to now, and only to learn that we now, or the next council, will have to wait till the next council meeting for the full detailed report to be released is really, really disappointing. Not just for me, but for other colleagues, elected members, our staff members, our external members, Te Kahua Tānui. Would have loved to have seen the report in full. The stats, the breakdown. I spoke of the KPIs in relation to the goals around Te Paiuta that we were all sent last year in October, and how important it would have been, and still is, to see what the alignment is for those goals through tūkotahi, whanaketahi, kōkiritahi, and what those key outcomes are, whether they have been met, whether they have not been met, what are some of the solutions to ensure that those goals are met next time around. So although I support this motion, the amendment, I will express my disappointment that we have not seen this, that we have not had the full report in detail with us today. So I will be asking some questions, but first I want to make some acknowledgements because we didn't get the chance to in our previous meetings. And apologies if I miss out any names, but really mihi atu a kaiwhakawhiti reo from the, I think Mike Te Wake was the first kaiwhakawhiti reo at our kōwhiri at Whare Runanga in 2022. We've had Kingi Raki Te Tani, we've had AJ Raki Te Tani, we've had Kawiti Waitford, we've had Eli Nui, Eli Roa, Eli Smith as well. We've had Mayor Moko, myself, we've had Lawrence, we've had other staff members within the council walls be our translators, because we know that speaking in the language that you're comfortable with, that you can trust, and that's very difficult to articulate in other languages, can be quite confusing and misrepresenting when you're trying to express kōrero from the ngākau. So really just want to acknowledge our kaiwhaka.
Pairama Woodbury Mayor AJ Raki.
Ngā tauira o te kura kaupapa Māori o kai. Mihi ana kia rātou. So after that, I have also acknowledgements to Fire Tracy, as we have on our amended resolution there. Fire Tracy, I look forward to actually seeing our other CCOs, whether I'm re-elected or not, submitting and reporting on their Te Paiuta goals between the 2025 and 2028 triennium. Page 263, I would have loved to see wording around this model is now transforming place-based approaches in other parts of the district. The aim of the strength-based partnership for the North Hokianga Transport Working Group is also around equitable outcomes regarding health, employment and education. And also the partnerships that we've made over the last 3 years, the hui that we've had around mana whakahono, MOUs, statements of intent with hapu and iwi, acknowledging that we have that on page 259. Our mana whakahono with Te Runanga o Ngāpuhi, our mana orite with Te Runanga o Whaingaroa, which took place last week. Our MOU with Ngāti Rehia and our MOU with Te Runanga o Te Rarawa. These are not hidden agendas. They aren't made up behind closed doors. They aren't about separating our district. They are not about lifting one people up. It's about bridging the gaps. It's about filling the potholes and seeing where the slips are and ensuring that we focus on bringing everyone up to speed. So when I talk about and acknowledge our memorandum of understandings, our mana orite, our mana whakahono, they're about true partnership when we think about te hakaputanga and te tiriti or waitangi. So anyone that's missed that today in these chambers can watch back on our live and indulge in those words. Pārtai around the percentages. I spoke about this at our te kuakawi. Looking at Aroha Mai. Let's start on page 278. Libraries 100%, museums and eyesights 100%, customer service 66%, communication and engagement 33%. How do we as elected members figure out what the total breakdown or the total makeup is for those percentages? That's my part-time. I'm not too sure who's presenting on this.
I'll take that, and I actually may have to take it away and look into that, but the goals were set by each team, and throughout the year we used a Te Whaiota dashboard, and that dashboard monitored the progress for each team against the goals that they set. So the outcome for comms and engagement has been 33%. However, I can't actually speak to specifically which goal, or whether it was one goal that wasn't achieved or parts of the
part hasn't been answered. We just grilled Roger and his team over the district planning, over the bylaws. Aroha mai, like we already know that the dashboard, we can see all of that in here. It's been presented to us through Te Huaka and anything major that needed to come to council. But how do we as elected members, we've had input to Te Whaiota since its implementation in 2023 alongside our tikanga and te reo policy. How do we see, I'll ask the question again, how do we see the makeup or the breakdown where teams have been failing, what the solutions are to make up in those areas? Because all I can see is 33%. 33% increased engagement on 4 key events on the Māori calendar. How do you get 33% out of that one goal?
I'm going to pass over to...
what are the other 2 goals missing, or 3 goals, or 4 goals? How do we make sense out of these numbers here?
I personally don't think that percentages are suggested fractions, because percentages will show a low percentage, but if there's only 4 or 3, then you're locked into either 33, 66 or 100 as your percentage scoring. But I'm going to pass over to the Group Manager of Communication and Engagement to respond on behalf of your team itself. Thank you, Nick.
Kia ora, and aroha mai that I couldn't be there today. I'm not too well. So to answer your pātai, Councillor Rakina, there are 3 goals per team, which I don't believe to your pātai was probably made clear enough in some parts of this. So the 33% accrues from the fact that 1 goal was completed in full, 2 goals are partially achieved, so they remain. And to your specific pātai around what those are, in the communication and engagement space, it's largely around creating a bilingual website, which is quite aspirational. Because at this point in time, we don't have a translator app that is accurate enough, meaning that we will have to rely on person-to-person translation of every single word on our website to achieve that. So we are looking into a couple of options. One is around the translator app that we have developed in-house, so looking to work with reo speakers in the north to hopefully improve that so that we can, in a cost-effective manner, look to achieve that. But hope that helps to answer your question around that percentage achieved. But happy to field any further questions. Thanks.
Okay, so for that specifically, the 2 goals that have been partially met, is that over a 1-year period?
Aye, so that's over a 1-year period from the time that we set the goal until we report through, but we have regular check-ins to talk about progress. So again, with the website goal, we've made progress around bilingual headers, but getting to full text is quite ambitious actually, and if I'm being honest, I probably wouldn't have put it in myself as a 1-year goal. I believe it will take quite a bit longer than that.
So as the GM for comms and engagement or corporate services, is that right? No, communications and engagement.
Community and engagement.
Will you keep the partially met goals, or will you change them? Because you've made the statement that you personally wouldn't have put that in.
So great question. And so we have adapted the goals for next year and sort of broken them up into more digestible chunks, if that makes sense, so that they are more achievable in the coming year.
Okay, delivery and operations is the same. 3 teams in there, 1, 2, 3, building compliance, building inspection, building services, all 33%. Consent engineering, there's no percentage there. How do we know what's going on? How do we know what's not going on? Who's answering that one?
I'm happy to speak up, and apologies for not being present, and my camera doesn't seem to be coming on. Councillor Rakina, through the chair. As you are aware, we've been responsible for delivering operations over the last 4 or 5 months, so it's been a really good experience to get a handle on where the various teams are in progressing these goals. I have shared with the Chief Executive, and I do see that we have made some significant improvement over the past year, obviously not reaching the 100% goal as indicated, of which I'm learning the details, and like Nicola has done in her group, adjusting and fine tuning to make sure that the goals that we are putting down are certainly within our reach, or certainly within a 1-year time frame that we can apply some of those ambitions that we have to progress this work. So I can't speak to you specifically to what those details are. I am looking into it, and we have been working towards it. We have to partial completion in some areas, other areas not so much, and we're looking to improve in that space.
Kapai, I think the answer I got was that you're looking to improve in those spaces. Is that right, Ruben?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think the percentages, and I agree with Mayor Moko around the way the feedback that we as SLT had in how this report is reporting that information is probably better to show, 3 out of 5, 4 out of 5, or something to that effect, because I think the percentages is certainly from my perspective it reflects differently in terms of, percentage wise of what is being completed, because I think as an organization, certainly within DNO, and obviously it's probably my fault that I set the high bar with the community and engagement. As you recall, I was managing that team before and trying to arrive at a website that has multi-language support, which is what we've been striving for, only to realize that some of these things to achieve requires a great deal of resource, capability, tools, training. And so granting that we're in the early phases and stages of implementing all these goals, we're starting to see and realize the reality of what it takes, and perhaps we might make better decisions around how we, as Nicola put it, create more bite-sized type goals so that we can see very measurable progress towards the right path. But you are correct. We continue to review that and make sure that the team has my support to achieve those things. The other thing I'll note in delivering operations is we're very seemingly regulatory and compliance space, right? And so there's a lot of regulation around how we do things. And it's been really a good challenge to try and test that and making sure how do we apply these principles in the way we work and make those changes. And I think we have made progress. In some areas we have made progress. And the areas that we haven't is obviously the ones that I'm really focused on at this point, being for 4 or 5 months into the role with DNO. Kia ora.
Tēnā koe, Ruben. There's other groups as well hitting the 33. Moving forward, me personally, and I'm actually going to speak on all elected members, just like our costings, annual plans, LTPs, everything else that's been delivered, give the same number, give the same total, give the same description that would describe where we're doing really, really well with Te Pai Uta, Te Pai Waho, Kairihia, and every other program that's attached to it. And also some of those highlights where there needs to be solutions put in place. Our wahine can have a baby at 9 months. This has taken a year. So while I support the korero received from our GMs, I do know that there's a lot more work in place. Kamatu aku korero I konei I mua I tēnā, tikana kia mihi atu ki te tīma o te hono. Lani, koe me tō tīma, I kaha tautoro I te iwa, I haka momori kia haere mai Te Pai Uta ki te tēpu nei, kia haka iriia, kia haka panake I roto I ngā pātū wata o tō tātou nei whare, mai kore ake whakoutou, ko tino hinga te ao Māori roto I tēnei whare. Me taku rika, taku hoha tonu ki ai koe I whai te raturanga. Rangi, he rā anō ki tua, no reira kia kaha kia koe, kia kaha kia mai, kia koutou katoa. Kamatu, I roto I tēnei reporta, one of the key factors that's actually missing from this report is the support and how elected members have actually carried Te Pai Uta, although we don't get access to this, but how we've carried Te Pai Uta and all that we do. There's probably one elected member who hasn't supported Te Pai Uta, but every single one of us sitting around this table has had something to do with ensuring that Te Pai Uta is embedded within this organisation and our communities. Kia ora mai tātou.
Councillor Haukear Haruira.
Kia ora tātai. Aroha mai mo taku tūreiti te ata nei, pōhehe ka tīmati te wānu. Engari mihi atu, he anau te mihi tuatahi ki te hui ngā wāhine toko I te ora, I hui ai I Kaitaia, I te wiki nei, whapāhure nei. nui aki te o tahi mano ngā wāhine Māori i haere mai ki te heku o te ika. Hei whakanui ngā kaupapa o ia rohi. Mihi atu ki ngā kai whakahaere o te heku. Tuarua ka mihi atu kia koe e piripi mai te kahu o Taunui. Tō rōpū i haere mai te tautoko i a mātou i roto i tēnei kaunihira. Hei tutuki e tahi o ngā whainga, hei painga mo te ao Māori. Ia wiki he hui ki Waitangi. Hei whakanui te whakaputanga me te titi o Waitangi. He momo aupa tērā mo te nuinga o te ao e haere mai ana te kite. Te painga o tēnei triti o tātou. He tauira pēr i Wainganui a tauiwi me Māori. Hei arahi a tātou. No reira, ka mihi atu ki te rōpū i whakahaere, i whakarite tēnei mahere, tēnei rautaki, kia tūtuki tātou i roto o te hiku i nei whainga. E hea, tare oi kore o mo te riko pāhuri ki engari, mihi atu ki ngā iwi. Whakatū whare o a tātou te iwi Māori me e tahi atu whānau, noho pohara, noho kainga kore, kia Ngāti Kuri, te au Pauri, te Rarawa, Hokianga, Hauora, te Hauora o Ngāpuhi, te Korowai, Aroha, me e rātu, me e rā momo Hirimana i Wainganui i te ngā kāwanatanga, kia tūtū he whare. And te nuinga kei runga whenua Māori. No reira, ka mihi atu ki te tīma reiki whenua Māori. I ngā tau ērua, kua whakatika, ko whakahau e tahi o ngā ture, ngā kaupapa here e roti tēnei kaunihira, hei whakatika mō a tātou ngā Māori. So, in my lifetime, I have seen my people living in cow sheds, kaumātua kuia, impoverished living in squalor, third world conditions. We still have whānau living in little sheds if they're lucky to put sheds together. We started like that. A lot of us, Māori and Pākehā, started like that in Awanui. We had a piece of whenua and we made it into what we made it into over time. Engari, I just hear, te tautoko, te whakanui o te take, he iti te reiti mō ngā whenua Māori. Hore kau mātou o te ao Māori, ka whai pūtea mai ngā pē ki pūtea. E mōhio au, e mahi ana mātou he papakainga, tino ua nui ake i te rua tau, te whakatū he pē ki pūtea ki Kiwi Bank. Te hoha, and he tino matatau, māua ko taku tāne te mai te rā momo mai. So he maha inia, kare o kora mo tira, mo te wāroa. He ua ki te tū whare i runga whenua Māori. He ua mo ngā whānau e tatari ana mo te kōti whenua Māori. Ka tatari mo ngā mea ka puta mai. So harikoa mō ngā mea kua puta mai i tēnei te whai o uta, ngā whainga kua tutuki, ngā mea kia tutuki. So, mihi atu ki te rōpū te hono, mō ngā mahi kua mahia, i ngā tau, tina pētekau. Kare e mōhio pihia tō pakeke, tō kaumātuatanga. Engari, mihi atu kia koutou mo tō maia e rōpū noi. And kiau, kua puta mai he hua pai, kia tite, te whānau Māori i roto i tēnei hāpori, he aha ngā mea e hihi ana te tini i roto i tēnei kaunihira. Mō mātou ngā iwi Māori ko tēnei wāhi kia pātoto ki te kuaha. Pātoto, parare, engari, ore tikau he tanga te whakautu kia mātou. Anyhow. So just mihi atu mō tēnei, and can I say that for me this is a huge improvement on the Section 32 Tangata Whenua report and addresses some of the unmet outcomes that were discussed in 2022. So ka mihi atu ki tēnei rīpuata, ai aroha hoki au, kāre tēnei pūrongo hara mai ki te hui te kuaka, taku wero kia koe e te kāhika, mehe mea ka hoki mai koe hei kāhika mo tēnei rohe, kia tū tonu te kumiti kuaka, te Rōpū North Hokianga Roading Group, haere au ki tērā hui te rāhuroi, me tahi atu. Oh, ko whānui ake ngā rore e hara ko ngā slips. Noi ho ko ngā rore o Mangamoka, o tēnā wāhi ko whānui ake. Ka haere tonu tērā momo rōpū, te kaukau, me ngā a tainga mai o ngā tira Māori, te kōrero, whakatakoto, kaupapa ki muia tātou aha ko te rema miniti. Mihi atu hoki kia koe Tanya, mo te hoko whenua ki Rawini, kia kore e tuku tiko ki te moana o Hokianga. Nō reira ka mihi atu a tatari ana, o tira whenua hoki ki Taipa, e rātu wāhi. Engari, ka mihi atu ki aku hoa o te kaunihira, he tino pai te mahitahi me koutou me ngā kaimahi. He rereke ngā pukenga o tēnā, kei au ōku ake, kei a koutou o ake, the planning, the road rage, taku ingoa mo tamati nāianei ko huri tana ingoa kia a dentist. Ki meka, pai ia ki te drill down. Me a kia koe te kahika me kowhai. Ngā kaimahi katoa, e arahi a mātou, Aisha, Amber, Kathy, Mālima, Lānima, tātou katoa. Tēnā koutou, kia ora. Haroha mai, he poroporo aki haua.
Councillor Foy.
Kia ora tātou. On page 282, we've written a few of the wins, but you've missed some off there. So I've written a list. So let's start off with Ahipara Wastewater. That wouldn't have gotten over the line without Paehura there on the working group. Paitai Airport, North, Paehura, and we've got Pinatoe online. That wouldn't have gotten over the line without that. Our whole community needs to thank our Māori councillors for getting this work done. Without them, it wouldn't have happened. Kaikohe Wastewater, Matodi Bay, Valley Wastewater, that was Pinatoe as well.
I ask that members please refrain from acknowledging each other or those who are sitting candidates. Just specific. I said that in Te Tamati, but I'm going to ensure that our last meeting follows all of the rules, please. So if you can speak to staff and to kaupapa themselves, but not to each other. Thank you, Councillor.
So I won't say names, but just under the premise of without multiple councillors and Moko as our mayor, a lot of we shouldn't be acknowledging that. Without acknowledging people, without that as part of our council structure. I'll carry on with my list because it's quite extensive. Kohu Wastewater, Taipa Wastewater, we're finally getting traction. These are 10-year projects that our council would waste hundreds of thousands of dollars on environment court and all these expensive Beaker consultants when we could just sit down and have a hui. And people may scoff at the power, that we want to spend this money on consultants, but the power of relationships is actually our strongest power. And I've learned that from being no names. I'm part of this council. The Hokianga Roading Group. The $37 million of Kawakawa IAF. I don't know the exact number for Kaikohe. It's nearing up to that $20 million for Kaikohe. These are giant upgrades that don't just benefit Māori, they benefit the whole community. And I feel that government has finally listened to us, no matter what the government is, because we have a united voice. And I've seen that with our consents as well. We talked about our Section 32 analysis. The staff write a report about tangata whenua as part of the district plan. What I've seen as one of the commissioners there is the input and participation now that they're starting to be part of those processes. Te Opodi have worked amazing in the hearings. Ngāti Hine as well, they just presented the other day. Sure. So I just wanted to highlight some of the ones that haven't been presented today. And if anybody can see this list, they will have no doubt that Māori wards are a huge success for this district. And that is for anybody, no matter what their background. So just to close, thank you for all those people getting those things done. And I look forward to more progress for our district to come.
Thank you, Councillor Foyer. I'm going to put the motion. You'd like to speak? Deputy Mayor Stretford.
Thanks, staff, for all the positive examples of how Te Whaiota is being given effect to operationally in the report that's great. There is one thing that, and this is not Te Hono, this is one of the teams across the organisation. When I first came onto council, there was a Karihi Marae who had a very negative experience with a building inspector. And so, you know, a lot of the changes that this organisation has been trying to effect is preventing that kind of behaviour from happening. But I hope Ruben's listening, because there has been another incident of that, an approach made by one of our staff onto another marae without any tikanga. So I just wonder, I'm not sure which manager can speak to this, but how has, you know, what is the...
What's the point of having a seatbelt if you don't wear it?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Leans against the side of
So for SLT, how are you making sure that, you know, one of the big reasons that we have these this Te Ao Māori framework in place is actually happening?
Through the chair, I can help respond to that. So one of the tools that we've put in place is actually measuring performance of each individual in the organisation against Te Ao Māori, and how every individual is living and breathing Te Ao Māori in the everyday mahi. There's certainly a leadership perspective in terms of team leaders, managers, GMs, making sure that things are being followed through on and proper tikanga is being applied. And I think we need to acknowledge, like, this is a learning journey, and there's no way after 12 months we were going to achieve everything all within that time period. So I think we have come a long way, and I'm not surprised to hear there are still some isolated incidents of that happening. So we have got some tools and frameworks that we are putting in place, to make sure that Te Pauta itself is enduring, no matter what the makeup of the council, because it's important to us as an organisation. And secondly, about holding individuals to account and developing them so they feel more comfortable and know how to approach situations and at that level, Deputy Mayor.
All right, thanks for that, Emma, because where there is a negative incident, it's not, you know, it's breaking tikanga, it doesn't sound big enough. It causes a lot of hurt, and it can cause a lot of shame on the hapu that are impacted by it. I remember having an altercation with a staff member going back probably 5 years ago, where they, Wayne there, one of the female staff members wanted to go onto a marae during a rebuild, and they just couldn't get it into their head why they could not go on there. And the fact that they did caused a whole heap of repercussions for the hapu, for the committee and everyone. And it, for those listening, they probably don't understand, but go read up on it if you want. One thing I would like to suggest as a goal for the future elected members is taking on a leadership role. We're expecting SLT to take on a leadership role with Te Paiuta. Let's take on, if we're here, let's take on a leadership role to bring our community with us, with Te Paiuta. Because there's a lot of misinformation and misunderstanding about what a Te Ao Māori framework does, how it benefits the organisation and how it benefits the district. But awesome mahi for the staff and for all the good and positive examples of the implementation. Kia ora.
I'll now put the motion, if I could have it up please, because it is an amendment motion. Those in favour say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed or abstentions, that is carried. Just in closing, Councillor Radich, he was on, is he off again? Just wanted to thank you again for your service, but you can watch back actually you can't watch it back because they cut it out when I went to try and find it. It was only available on the Teams. Find the Teams, watch the Teams, we said some cool stuff about you. Thank you for your service. I acknowledge one of our DGs, Marissa, who is on maternity leave and gave birth to a new Pepe on her last day before going on maternity leave. So congratulations to you and your partner, Marissa, and I'm glad to know that you gave birth to your baby boy at Kotuku, our new maternity hospital in Whangarei. And also thank you to all of you staff. Good luck with your new council, whoever they may be. And with that, I'll close us off with karakia. It's tapunga kōrero ka irikia ki ngā pātua pātai whare ki ngā pōmahara haumi e hui e.